Hello everyone, welcome back to the Bundesliga Show, brought to you by Over the Bar, with your hosts, myself, Rory Petre, and Mark Broadhurst from Nuremberg. I was going to call you Mark Nuremberg there. Welcome back everyone, welcome to the Bundesliga Show. If you're new, welcome along. If you're a regular viewer, welcome back. Got another excellent weekend's worth of Bundesliga action to kind of get our teeth stuck into. Lots of big results have been going on over the weekend, so we're very excited to kind of just get straight into it, really. Just before we do, go over to Mark for the anagram. If you're new to the channel and you've not seen as much, but you like our content, please do click that big red button, subscribe. And if you do watch regularly and you still haven't subscribed, please do so. I'm going to say it week in, week out until you all do subscribe. So please, get on board, and then you won't miss out on any of our shows as they're coming out more and more regularly, and we're producing more and more content. So get on board with it all. So without further ado, we'll go straight over to Mark, and he'll crack on with Mark's mystery anagram. We'll go through last week's, the answers to last week's, and of course this week's new one. So Mark, over to you.
Absolutely, yeah. So let's start off by recapping last week's anagram. Yeah. So let's pull that back up onto the screen. So it was, as you can see, it was actually Vandal Rise. It was 2 words, Vandal Rise. But unfortunately, nobody got it correct in either the live chat or the comments this week. Yeah, which is a little bit surprising because some people have got some really tough ones in recent weeks. I know some of the managers people have been getting like really easily, but I think this week, to me, it seemed a little bit easier. But yeah, maybe you guys just didn't comment in the end, but I hope some of you guys got it on the podcast as well. And it was Frankfurt's informed striker, Andre Silva. Yeah, so that was the anagram for week 21. So let's quickly push on to the anagram for week 22 now. So so remember, it has to be something related to the Bundesliga. It has to be either a player, a manager, or indeed a club from the top tier of the Bundesliga. So let's have a look at this week. So as you can see on the bottom of your screen, it's 3 words this week. So it's rich, hiker, hole. Rich, hiker, hole. So remember, it has to be something related to the Bundesliga. I'm just going to read it a little bit slower for the people that are listening on the podcast as well. So just take a pen and write it down if you want to play for fun. And remember to interact with us and comment on the YouTube channel. So the first word is rich, R-I-C-H. Then it's hiker, H-I-K-E-R. Then it's hole, H-O-L-E. So that's your Mark's mystery anagram for week 22 now. So so let's recap the week's results. So as we're filming at the moment, due to the United game, we had to film a little bit earlier this week because obviously Rory wants to watch United. So the game is currently ongoing between Hoffenheim and Werder Bremen. So we're just going to kind of recap the 8 games that have already finished this weekend. So let's have a look at that. So as you can see on the bottom of your screen, these are the results for week 22. So on Friday night, we had another win for Wolfsburg, 3-0 away in Bielefeld, who got that. I just wanted to mention they got that amazing 3-3 draw against Bayern the week before. We didn't cover that game because United won, but credit for that one. They were probably a little bit leggy going into this game, I would imagine, which is why perhaps they didn't compete as well as they would have wanted. Then moving on to Saturday, we had a 1-0 win for Stuttgart in Cologne. We had a 2-1 win for Mainz in Gladbach. Then the big game of the weekend finished 2-1 to Frankfurt over Bayern. The title race is back on. Then, we had a win, the first win in a good while for Union away in Freiburg. They got a 1-0 win. Then the late kickoff on Saturday was the Riviera Derby, wasn't it? And it was yet another battering for Schalke. It seems to happen almost every week, doesn't it? They lost 4-0 at home to Dortmund, who had a great result midweek in Seville. So perhaps they were buoyant after that one. Then moving on to Sunday, there were actually 3 games. There was a 1-1 draw between Augsburg and Leverkusen. And then Leipzig, with a little bit of pressure on the back to close the gap, met the pressure with a very, very comfortable 3-0 win at massively underperforming and hopeless at home Hertha Berlin. So yeah, let's get stuck in with that, Rory. Yeah, so let's start with OTB's featured 4, which are the 4 games that we decided to pick that we enjoyed the most over this weekend. And it was a good weekend of football, actually, this weekend.
Yes.
But yeah, let's start with the match that mattered the most, the match that we built up the week before as a huge game. And yeah, 2 games without a win now for Bayern. I mean, it's not often we talk about that, is it? I mean, obviously, nobody expected the 3-3 draw against Bielefeld on Monday. And some people might have said that, yeah, that's not a good time to come into the game for Frankfurt, because obviously, usually when Bayern don't win, they win the game after, you know. But it wasn't to be this time. And despite the fact that Frankfurt were missing Andre Silva, which was a big shock, they still got the 2-1 win. And I was really impressed with the performance, Rory. I mean, I thought this was just a great performance against a slightly off-form Bayern side at the moment.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, certainly in the first half, I've not seen a team so comfortable against the champions. They genuinely were in complete control, creating chances at will. Kostic and Younes were running a mock of the Bayern defence, really getting in behind often to be able to whip in those, well, Kostic's kind of trademark whips of, brilliant crosses. And again, of course, he becomes provider for the first goal in the shape of Kamada's goal. That's one thing that we've already talked about on this show already, actually, in terms of Kamada. We want him to be in those danger areas and score more goals, and fair play to him. He's obviously produced the goods there. I mean, he almost did miss, but it still went in. So that's what's important. So they're linking up really well. Obviously, they were looking to threat. And Younes, obviously, is a player that I've not actually seen much of him. I know you've been a fan of him, Mark, actually, since he's come to the club. And I wasn't overly sure of him, especially when he only just came over. I wasn't particularly convinced, but fair play to him. He's completely turned my opinion of him around. He was spectacular against the champions on the Saturday. And of course, his goal, the second goal, ends up being the winner. An absolute thunderous strike, top bins, past Neuer. How do you like that? I mean, what a strike that was. He even had the nerve to try and lob Neuer from the halfway line, I think it was at one point. Very, very ambitious, but just goes to show how confident he is as a attacking centre midfielder, whatever you want to call him. Obviously minus Andre Silva, Jovic got the call up, and I thought he did well. Obviously, he didn't get the headlines maybe for getting the goals necessarily, but I thought he broke up play within the Bayern defence and midfield quite a lot. He won a lot of balls back. He held it up quite well. Would have been the first time that he started and played a long amount of football. Obviously, he's come on and done some cameos in games where Frankfurt have effectively already won the game. So it was a big start for him as well, and I thought he did an excellent job. All round the pitch, I thought Frankfurt were excellent. Bayern did inevitably come back into the game. Obviously, a good bit of play from Leroy Sané, actually, to set up Lewandowski, obviously twisting and turning. After even being doubled up on, he managed to sell the 2 Frankfurt defenders an absolute merry-go-round, basically. And obviously, it's what Lewandowski does in the right area at the right time and scores. And obviously, from that point onwards, I was kind of expecting Bayern to really come at Frankfurt with everything they had. I think Choupo-Moting had a chance where he's kind of flicked it a back heel, which went just past the post. But it was very much kind of end-to-end sort of stuff. And then there's certainly one bit of that could have really caused a lot of controversy, which I just want to quickly touch on, was when Kostic managed to go through late on. I think the score was still 2-1 at this time. Whips the ball across for the sub. I think his name was Achti. To basically, he looks like he's walking on to a tap-in. And Alphonso Davies is tracking the run, and he starts to pull him back and starts to foul him just outside the area. And there's a bit of contact, and then obviously the player goes down in front of goal, and we're kind of expecting a penalty and at least a yellow card for Davies. The ref didn't give it at first, and I was expecting there to be a thorough VAR check. And for me, that's criminal from the referee and by the VAR officials not to give that. That could have had a huge impact on that game. And for them not to give it, the player is fouling. Davies is fouling the player from the start at the edge of the area. He's tugging at him. He's in his line of running, basically. And as a defender, if you're the wrong side, you have to get the other side. You can't go into the striker's running lane. It's what Davies does. He brings him down by hook or by crook. And for me, that's a penalty and a red card. So I'm amazed that wasn't given. So Bayern were lucky in that front. But yeah, what a game of football.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that surprised me is, as you say, how easily, obviously, Frankfurt hung on. Like when I saw that Lewandowski got the goal, I mean, it was a classic Lewandowski goal, really, wasn't it? Like the tapping from the good footwork from Sane, and I kind of thought, oh, here we go again. You know, I mean, we'd seen it on the Monday night, albeit they only got a draw in that game, but still, they were behind 2-0 and 3-1 in that game, well into the second half. And I thought we could see the same, but I think this kind of shows the maturity of this Frankfurt side. Like I think the Choupo-Moting effort was at 2-0. And then I think, yeah, obviously they got the goal. And then I think the only real chance they had was through Kingsley Coman. Like I think they put a ball across and he kind of skewed it wide. That was definitely the best chance they had. But I think, as you say, with the penalty incident, that had to be given. And then I think it was from Kostic. Neuer made a really good save into the last 5 minutes as well. So I think it was still Frankfurt pushing for that third goal. And I think one thing I've been really impressed with Frankfurt is the bottle that they've shown really in some of these games. I mean, I think early in the season, they were giving leads away left, right, and centre, weren't they? And they were leading a lot of games. And then I think they've really worked on that. Adi Hütter's obviously realised, you know, if we can start holding on to these leads and we can start pushing for more goals, then we can win a lot of games. And that's exactly what's happened now with 9 wins in 10. And the other game was a draw. I mean, it's just an outstanding run. 28 points from 10 games. And they're not even out of the title race now, incredibly. They're only 7 points behind Bayern. I mean, it's only on the periphery of the title race, but you can't rule them out. I mean, for me, they've been the best side over this 10-game period in the Bundesliga, no question about that. They've battered most of the teams that they played, to be honest. So I think, it's been fantastic. But I just want to touch a little bit more on Bayern as well. I mean, I can't understand Hansi Flick's team selection at times. I mean, this is the second game in a row that Choupo-Moting started in that attacking midfield role. I mean, I think he's kind of a bit of a comedy, like he's a bit of a terrace hero, really, Choupo-Moting, isn't he? Because, I mean, he obviously went to Paris Saint-Germain. Nobody could understand it. Then he goes to Bayern Munich, and nobody could understand it, you know? I mean, I think he must have a really good agent in there as well. But to see him starting the last 2 games, I mean, the bottom line is, on the bench, Hansi Flick, he's got young Jamal Musiala, who for me has been really good when he's played this season. And this is, I cannot understand what's going through his mind to start 30-year-old Choupo-Moting when you've got a young guy who could potentially be lured away from the club if he feels as though he's not getting enough football. I just don't understand that one at all, to be honest. I mean, he's come off the bench for both games, but what do you think about that one, Rory?
Yeah, for me, it is a strange one. And it also, for me, highlights how important Thomas Muller is to this Bayern team still. There are lots of cries for Muller to be involved back in the national setup, which I can't argue against, really. I think he's been one of their better players again this season. And so, obviously, when he's not available, there seems to be this gap in the attacking central midfield position. They've got a good amount of wide players, obviously, that can fill those roles. But obviously, at the moment, it's screaming out that when they've not got a Muller in there, you would obviously, at the moment, he's thrown in Choupo-Moting, and it's not working. I mean, when you say a terrace hero, I'm not even sure the Bayern fans would go that far. I think they'd be crying out for Musiala to start every day of the week instead of him. But yeah, it's very interesting. First bit of kind of criticism that we can maybe throw Hansi Flick's way for some very strange decisions in terms of obviously starting players. They'll now obviously have to change their focus to the Champions League tie, of course. And whether he changes up the team, we'll have to see to freshen it up. It would be interesting to see how they get on against Lazio, of course. But yeah, obviously it's now more of a title race, and Bayern will now have to switch themselves on more to both the domestic league and, of course, their European ambition. So it'd be really interesting to see how they go from now on.
Yeah, I think there was also a bit of an element of arrogance from Bayern in this game as well. I think they were, I don't know, I don't want to make accusations, but I think to an extent, obviously they do have the game midweek coming up, and we have mentioned before that German teams like to rotate before they have big European games. But still, I mean, the decision to start Mark Rocker as well, I mean, from the young man from Espanyol, I mean, his first game against a team that have won like 8 out of the 9 before this game. I mean, it seems a little bit brutal, doesn't it? I mean, obviously he was hauled off at half-time for Goretzka, who was rested. I mean, it's incredible that you can rest a player against a team that have won 8 in 9, you know?
Yeah.
And I think the other issue as well is the fact that Alaba is getting so much game time, because I think obviously he said he wants to leave. From what I gather, the Bayern hierarchy aren't overly happy with his decision, and they feel as though he's tried to kind of run down his contract a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I think, I know they do have injuries and COVID cases and all sorts. And I think, but I was a little bit surprised to see him playing centre half yesterday as well, to be honest with you. And I think obviously Boateng, with the tragic situation with his girlfriend, he was making his first appearance. But yeah, I mean, things aren't right at Bayern at the moment. I think Lazio are going to look at that game midweek and think, we could maybe take a lead into that second leg, to be honest with you. Okay, so let's move on to the next game, which was obviously the Riviera derby. I mean, I think most people tip that it could be a little bit closer than this, but I think we could be looking back come May or early June when the season finishes. We could be looking back. This has been a pivotal week for Dortmund, to be honest with you, because, I mean, obviously they got the massive win away in Sevilla, which was really important, because I think most people fancied Sevilla there. I mean, I know they're not through yet, but they're going to be big favourites now going into that second leg. And then obviously hammering beleaguered Schalke here for the first win in what seems like ages. I think it's the first win in 4 in the league, this one. Yeah. This is going to keep their top 4 dreams alive. I mean, to be honest, again, a lot of this game for me was just typical Schalke in many ways. It was just very, very poor from them. But I think obviously the big moment that everyone's going to remember was the first Haaland goal, really. I mean, what a goal that was. Yeah. I mean, he's just been unbelievable in these 2 games this week, hasn't he, Rory?
Yeah, he's been back to his best. Clearly looking much sharper now, and is back to the deadly striker that we all know him to be. Linking up really well with Sancho again. Those two have obviously got an excellent thing going on between the two of them. Obviously before I maybe talk about Haaland's impact, as you rightly said, it was a quiet game for the first 30-35 minutes. Sancho had an early chance after about 5 minutes, but other than that, it was a bit tepid, and it was just a battle of midfield. And then, I mean, about a few minutes away from getting into half-time at 0-0, Schalke dithering around with the ball just outside your own area, lose the ball. Obviously, Sancho gets onto it and finishes really well past Farman. 1-0, that's obviously a confidence killer going into the half-time. Then you think, just get into half-time, 1-0 down, but then obviously the clipped ball in from Sancho, Haaland finds himself a bit of space in the area, which he shouldn't have that much space. And then obviously the kind of scissor kick motion to put it beyond the keeper was spectacular. He gets so much elevation, Haaland, off the ground. When you actually see how high he is on point of contact, it's really impressive. His technique, the skill to do it is absolutely fantastic. So that obviously was the real highlight of the game. And then second half again was fairly cruise control. Nice goal for Guerrero, good 1-2 with Royce, I think it was, in the area. That was a nice goal. And then Haaland got himself a tap in from a Bellingham assist as well, right at the end. Complete performance from Dortmund, I'd say. There was a couple of chances for Schalke just after half time at 2-0. There was one for Serdar, where his effort hit the post. And then Hummels again with a typical kind of mental moment, frazzled brain, it seemed, lost the ball inside the area, and Hoppy managed to get onto the ball, and his effort was saved, actually. And fair play to Hitz, who actually had a good game, I think it's fair to say. So it could have been different if it maybe got back to 2-1, but of course, obviously, there are only ifs and buts in football when you kind of talk about those things. So yeah, Schalke obviously now, have got to be facing the facts of relegation is pending, basically. Feels like a matter of time until it's mathematically kind of, and confirmed, basically. And for a friend of the show, I think Greg, who runs the Schalke UK Twitter account, has seen a lot of stuff from him lately, and he's been basically kind of saying that from henceforth there should be a pre-season going into and looking at next season, so you're prepared for it. And I completely agree with that, actually. It's a really good point. They should just use the rest of the season now to see who's good enough to play a good level of football, who's not going to be there, get rid of them straight away. Look at the setup. Obviously, there's going to be lots of change in the entire club structure, I think, by the looks of it as well, going into the summer. So, yeah, if Schalke don't get their affairs in order, they could be in for a real shock. I tweeted from my account saying it felt quite sad, actually, because it feels like it could be the last Revier derby for quite some time. It would be a real shame if we don't see something that's such a great derby with such great history, with fans in again, whenever that may be. Like, obviously, it's not going to happen next season, so who knows when we'll next see one. Obviously, maybe apart from cup draws. So yeah, it's like sad tinge to it for me, I feel.
Yeah, and I think it is a blow for the Bundesliga as well, the fact that Schalke's relegation is pretty much pending. I mean, you can never say never. I mean, they are only 9 points away, but I mean, well, it's more like 10 with the goal difference. And I mean, when you've only won one game in like 14 months, it's just not going to happen, is it? Do you know what I mean? And obviously some of the other teams improving as well in that kind of relegation area. But yeah, I mean, I just wanted to mention a couple of other things related to the team news. I mean, obviously regarding Dortmund fans, they've been calling for Dahoud to start for a long, long time. I mean, we mentioned that Bellingham hasn't, I don't want to say he hasn't done it, because I mean, he's a very young guy, but for me, he's had too much game time at too young. And I think a guy like Dahoud is probably overall a better player at the moment. I mean, obviously, he came into the team against Sevilla, banged one in from 30 yards to equalise, and then another good midfield performance in this game as well. So I think, I mean, it's good to see that Dortmund fans' cries have been heard, and Dahoud is back in the team, and it's been 2 really good performances for him. And I was also happy to see Bellingham come off the bench and get that assist as well. So it proves that he has got character, dropped for the last couple of games, but still he's back in there. And it's good to see him getting that assist. So it proves he does have character as well, with a good substitute performance. But yeah, I think also, I mean, a few other changes as well. Obviously, Brandt coming into the team, who hasn't had the best of seasons this year, but he was a little bit better in this game as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think obviously for Schalke, losing Farman to an injury as well, that was also unfortunate. Obviously, Langer coming on to replace him at 0-0, and he ends up conceding 4 goals. So it just sums up their season, really, doesn't it? It's just sometimes in football, just nothing goes your way, and it's just been that way for Schalke this year. But ultimately, they've just not been good enough, and it is probably going to be a shock relegation for them. So we'll have to hope for their sake they can bounce back, but it's not always that easy, because they'll have to sell probably most of their players that are worth anything. And they'll probably have to bring a few young players in, get a few. I'm not even sure they'll be able to keep the likes of Kolasinac, to be honest with you, because he'll be on big wages, and probably Mustafi will be too expensive to keep. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens over in Gelsenkirchen over the next year or so. Okay, so let's move on from that one to probably the shock of the weekend, I would say. I mean, what a result this was from resurgent Mainz 05. I mean, what a result this was. I mean, we've talked about them getting better and better in recent weeks, but I said on my predictions last week that this one could be a tricky one, because Gladbach seem as though, we mentioned last week that, the Marco Rose announcement just seemed really strange to me. For me, it should have been kept quiet, or they should just have let him go mid-season, to be honest. That's what I would have done. And I think, the season just seems to be capitulating at the minute, doesn't it? They seem to be losing week in, week out at the minute. And this was a really poor performance, really, against resurgent Mainz, Rory.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I'll talk about the game in a second. I think obviously just with regards to the Marco Rosa situation, I've seen lots of angry reaction, obviously, to the announcement in general, and of course the timing of the announcement, and the fact that obviously Marco Rosa is kind of seeing out his contract for the rest of the season. They've not been playing good football in general for a while now. It's been thrown in the odd okay performance and win, but yeah, it all just stinks now of an absolute disaster of a kind of announcement, and how Marco Rosa can stay at the club now. I really can't see why it would happen. If I was Gladbach, I would terminate that contract as quickly as I could. Obviously, Marco Rosa's he's undoing a lot of the good work that he'd done with the club, which is a real shame, I think. There's lots of angry fans out there, Gladbach fans, and rightly so, I think, for the way that things have been handled. So yeah, at the moment there's a big cloud over the club right now, and things just don't seem to have been handled very well. So that's a shame. And then going on to the game itself, yeah, Gladbach did not help themselves. Like the first goal, for example, it's just a bit of a hopeful long ball hit by Saint Just. Sorry, tickly throw there. So a long ball just goes a long way as well, and you just expect Gladbach defence to kind of eat it up and head it away, but they allow the ball to bounce, and then the striker on Siwoo is strong enough to hold off the defender and get off a really good effort, actually, on the half volley, a clean hit into the side netting and in, or even off the post, to make it 1-0. And they looked really dangerous, to be honest. I think Salazar had a good chance as well. Salazar. Before or just after, actually, there was a few different controversial moments. The Mainz keeper Zenter probably got away with one as well, as he gave away a penalty. I think it was after he tripped Neuhaus after dropping a regulation catch, but in the build-up, luckily for him, the player was offside, so the decision got reversed. So that was a bit of a let-off for Mainz. The equaliser came from who else? Captain Fantastic, in the shape of Lars Stindl. He's been there. Well, I mean, it's not been a good season, but without his goals, they would be even further down the league, for sure. And then, yeah, I mean, the last goal, Mainz, with a team that was showing the ambition to go out there and try and win the game late on with a few minutes to go. Obviously, the ball kind of falls narrow angle, like an acute angle for Stolger to come on to really nicely and smash it home. It's an excellent finish, to be fair to the player. So that obviously ends up being the winning goal. I mean, Gladbach certainly did have their chances. It's still too easy to get in behind the Mainz defence. It's still too easy to create chances. So they will need to address that. They've picked up some amazing wins and points, and now they're well back in it, but they still need to address that. But there just seemed to be no confidence in the Gladbach ranks in terms of finishing off those chances. Plie there was one chance for Plie where he got around the back. He seemed to take too long and then just smash it into the side netting. Never looked like he was going to score to me. So yeah, I mean, obviously things are not going well at the top end of the club, and then when the players aren't producing the goods either, it really leads to a bit of a toxic atmosphere, I can imagine. So that's obviously not good. From the Mainz point of view, what a comeback it's been. I think pretty sure that you and me, Mark, were writing them off about a month and a half ago, 6 weeks ago. And at that point, I think it was fair for us to say that. But right now, they have really opened up a really exciting looking relegation race right now. Obviously, they're just a point off the relegation playoff place, which Bielefeld currently hold. Then there's, of course, Hertha Berlin, Cologne, and then maybe Augsburg and Werder can probably contemplate that they're maybe just about out of reach, but their fans probably won't think that. So we've now got an excellent race at the bottom end of the table. fantastic race in terms of who's going to make that top 4 spot for Europe, and the title race is back on. So it's been a good kind of set of fixtures and results this weekend for the Bundesliga in general.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. Yeah, I mean, obviously Kevin Stöger as well. An interesting point is that he banged in the 95th minute equaliser in Leverkusen last week, and then he banged in again off the bench, and he banged in the 86th minute winner this week. So I think he'd owe him quite a lot. I mean, just from his boot, from his 2 finishes, that's earned them 3 extra points this season already. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty decent. But yeah, I mean, I think as for Gladbach now, I mean, obviously the 9 points adrift of that top 4 spot. Sorry, I mean, it's looking very unlikely, and I just think, I mean, I think it's going to be a really interesting story to watch between now and the end of the season, because I think I can see if they get battered at Man City on Monday, I think he might either get fired or resign. To be honest with you, I really do. And I can see potentially Rosa going to Dortmund before the end of the season. That would be my prediction at the moment, because I know that Gladbach fans are absolutely livid with the situation. I think the way you put it, like they're a bit annoyed, is probably an understatement. But I know a lot of Gladbach fans, they just want the guy out of the club basically now. Yeah. And I can understand why, because it does seem very unprofessional. I mean, we don't know all the ins and outs of it, but it does seem a poor situation. And I think also from the Gladbach board, I mean, I don't understand why they didn't just let him go and get a lot of compensation, to be honest with you. They would have been able to demand more compensation mid-season than at the end of the season. So, I mean, it's going to be a very interesting point, because you've got to remember in the Cup, they play each other as well, I think in like 2 weeks or 3 weeks. So yeah, that's for me, really interesting.
Yeah, sorry. For me, it feels like when that game comes around, Marco Rosa cannot be in the Gladbach hot seat. It just feels wrong at this point. Yeah. So, I mean, I'd be shocked if he was still there then.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Man City are going to be absolutely rubbing that. I mean, they don't really need any more luck than the way they're playing at the moment, but they're going to be rubbing their hands together next week ahead of going to Gladbach. I mean, I think we could see a hammer in there, to be honest with you, and I think it could end Marco Rosa's reign in shame, really, in some ways. I mean, obviously, back in the league, they've got Leipzig next week away from home. It's hard to see them getting anything out of that, so... I mean, it could get worse before it gets better for Gladbach. Yeah, I mean, obviously the other point is, are they going to start trying to take players as well from Gladbach when with Dortmund? Because I mean, there's a lot of good players at Gladbach, especially in the midfield positions. You know, like Kramer, recently German international, and Neuhaus is highly rated. Even Stindl, I think they could. Even he wouldn't. I mean, I think he's about 30 or 31 now, but still, I mean, he's a leader. You know, I mean, he's got a lot of experience, and I think that's what Dortmund could perhaps do with. So it's going to be very interesting going forward, really. That's for sure. Okay, so let's move on to the last featured game, which is the other informed team along with Frankfurt, which is obviously Wolfsburg, who got a very, very comfortable win against Bielefeld. I mean, I think, to be honest, this was really, really comfortable. Obviously, Renato Stefan getting a couple of goals. He's been really on form in recent weeks as well. I think I'll go as far as saying this was as comfortable a Bundesliga win as you're going to get, really. I mean, it just seemed like very comfortable for most of the game. I get the feeling that Bielefeld were perhaps a little bit leggy from the game on Monday night. Obviously, it was a snowy pitch as well, so I think that would probably taken its toll on the legs as well. I think this could have been a case of good fixture timing for Wolfsburg, but yeah, they look, I mean, their defense is just absolutely on fire at the moment. Only 19 goals conceded in the 22 games. Yeah. Second best defense in the league after Leipzig, who've only conceded 18 in the same number of games. Rory, what did you make of this one?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it was one of the most comfortable victories of the weekend, I think. And yeah, everything that you've alluded to in terms of timing of the fixture. Wolfsburg, obviously, this season not in Europe as well. They can really concentrate on what they're doing in the league. Armenia would have given so much to that impressive 3-3 draw with the champions. So yeah, it would have obviously taken a lot out of their legs in general. And yeah, I mean, there are some good goals as well, to be fair. Obviously, a good bit of play from Gerhard after he got put in behind the defence, which were probably playing a bit too high, really. And Stefan gets on the end of it to finish well. The second goal was obviously a bit of a keeper error, unfortunately, from the very impressive Ortega Moreno this season. He's been a really important aspect to why Bielefeld have got as many points as they have. but unfortunately he spilled it, and Steffen is there on hand to tap in to kill the game. And then I mean, we've seen some nice goals already this weekend, obviously in the shape of Haaland, but I think Maximilian Arnold's goal is a superb strike as well. A little 1-2 with Weghorst on the area, and then just bends it in beautifully. He's got a lovely touch when it comes to striking a football, and that was a lovely way to end what was an important and another very good 3 points for Wolfsburg. I mean, obviously, we're talking about a title race and the race for top four. Wolfsburg, they're in third as a result of goal difference. So they're well in the conversation as well if they can keep this form up as well. It's really, well, at the moment, the top four is really well established because of the form of Leverkusen and Dortmund and Gladbach as well. At the moment, the top four looks settled to me, unless things really kind of go the wrong way for Wolfsburg or Frankfurt, but I can't see that at the moment. So for me, the top four is the top four right now, but obviously we'll have to see that maybe change over the course of the rest of the season. But impressive win for Wolfsburg. They go marching on. Bielefeld, of course, have got that game in hand still, and will be looking to pick up points in due course. If you offered them 1 point from these two games against Wolfsburg and Bayern, they probably would have taken it, to be frankly honest. So I'm sure they can concentrate on other bigger games to come.
Yeah, I mean, they just need a good fixture now. They seem to have had a really, really brutal run of fixtures. Obviously, the only winnable game they've had recently was the Werder Bremen, and it got cancelled. It got postponed. So I think that postponement came at a really bad time for them, I think. But I think before that, they had Leipzig and a couple of other. And then obviously they got Dortmund next week as well, so it just doesn't get any easier for them, does it? It's a tough league when you're not getting many wins. But yeah, they do have enough to believe. But I just want to talk about this Wolfsburg defence at the moment. I mean, this is they just don't concede goals, do they? I mean, Brooks is just an absolute monster at the back, isn't he? And he seems to be getting more and more confident. He seems to be able to bring the ball out from the back. I mean, I really like Lacroix as well. I think he's a really good partner. I mean, we've mentioned before Casteels, the goalkeeper as well. It just seemed, for me, this Wolfsburg side, I think they're really benefiting from the fact they don't need to play in Europe as well, because it's the same team every week at the moment. You know? It's the same week, Schlager and Arnold in that central midfield, and they've got obviously Baku, who's come good in recent weeks. And then they've got quality to bring off the bench. I mean, Brekalo, who before this run was probably one of their key players, and he can't get in the team at the minute. You know? Bielek as well. Bielek, the Polish international, is another highly rated midfielder. And I just think that there's a lot of reason to believe they can get that top four. I mean, they might not have to do that much because teams like Leverkusen and Dortmund are probably going to keep dropping points for as far as things go.
Agreed.
So if you look at the last 12 games, maybe 6-7 wins is probably going to be enough. I would even go as far as saying that 6 wins will be enough at this point. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see their form to the end of the season. Okay, so that brings an end to our featured four. So let's move on to the rest of the games. So yeah, I think the most interesting then was probably Leipzig's 3-0 win at Hertha. I mean, obviously a lot of pressure coming into this game. They had the chance to close that gap to 2 points. I mean, this is a team that they have an unbelievable record. I don't know if you know about this, Rory, but the record at Hertha is unbelievable. Like, they won the last 4 visits have been 6-2, 5-0, and then this is 2 3-0s in a row now. So I think Hertha Berlin are going to be happy to see the end of Leipzig at the Olympiastadion, Rory.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. Yeah, this was a very big fixture for Leipzig because they would have had to have come off the disappointment from the game against Liverpool, a game in which they weren't necessarily outclassed but shot themselves in the foot for their 2 goals that they conceded, and would have to react really well. But of course, they would have been buoyed by the result on Saturday, and so obviously this game was huge. If they didn't take advantage of it, then of course, I mean, then you'd be completely gutted as an RB fan if you didn't make the most of Bayern dropping rare points. It was a very professional performance. Sabitzer thought was really good. Obviously, he opens the scoring with a delightful effort, and that's kind of the catalyst to go on and relax into the game for them. Obviously, a Hertha Berlin side low on confidence. Just obviously, the signing of Khedira, obviously he couldn't do much today either. He started and was eventually substituted. So even his impact couldn't help Hertha on this occasion against a very confident and strong-looking RB side. I liked the look of their team selection a lot more today. We saw Hwang get a start. He looked lively against Liverpool, actually, and Poulsen also got the nod. So, yeah, title race is well and truly back on. It was fantastic to see. We, I think, as two Bundesliga fans, were quite worried that it would just be a formality this season. But going into Matchday 23, we've now got a title race again, which is fantastic. So we will watch very closely and hopefully be treated with lots of excellent games at the top end of the table, not, of course, foregoing the clash between RB and Bayern Munich, I think, around April time. So that could be very tasty indeed.
Yeah, I think for Leipzig now, they've just got to try and keep within 3 points going into that game, really, haven't they? Because I think, like, if they have the chance to overtake Bayern, if they win that game, I mean, it's going to be like they go favourites to win the title from that point, So I mean, they've just got to keep going. They are within a title race. For me, there's still 4 teams. I wouldn't even completely rule Frankfurt and Wolfsburg out, 7 points adrift. And I think Bayern, they have problems, Bayern have problems. And I think this is definitely a chance for another team. But it's about consistency, we've got to get this kind of consistency. And all 3 of those teams are on very good form now. I think that's 4 wins in a row for Leipzig after that shocking defeat in Mainz at the end of January, I think it was. But yeah, I mean, they are showing some consistency now. And yeah, I agree with you, though. I really like the look of the starting lineup this time. I do think, in contrast to what I said earlier in the season, I think Poulsen does need to play for them to be at the best. I think they need that focal point. Yeah. But I think when you saw them against Liverpool and they put Mukiele up there, they just didn't look the same side, to be honest. They need a bit of physical strength up there. And I think Poulsen was good in this game, that's for sure. Okay, so let's just continue there. So, yeah, obviously we had a 1-0 win for Stuttgart in Cologne. Obviously, and I think the main thing in that game was an amazing header for the on-form Kaladzic as well. I mean, that was an amazing header, 36 centimetres above the defender he got. Yeah, I saw that on the Bundesliga, on the DAZN coverage as well. It showed that. I mean, he can really leap, that guy, can't he? It was an amazing header, that, Rory.
Yeah, it was very impressive. From the usual source of Sousa's left boot, very reliable player and is a very exciting player, actually, I think. So, yeah, and I mean, it was a bit of it's a mid-table clash in terms of Stuttgart's point of view. They just continue to go about their business and get another important win. Cologne, obviously, have been improved of late, but they'll be probably upset to have not taken something away from this game, given the fact that Stuttgart probably don't have much to play for in terms of they're not going to get relegated and they're not going to get top 6 place either. So they probably could have targeted this game. But yeah, fantastic header, and Kaladzic has been incredibly impressive and has really got, it looks like he's got a lot about him. Looks obviously a complete threat in the air and has got himself an impressive number of goals already. So he's a bit of looks like a really good player that Stuttgart have unfolded there as well.
Yeah, I think the key to this game was obviously, I think it was even, and then obviously Kaladzic got the goal. And then after that, I think they had 2 or 3 chances in quick succession to probably kill the game. Then obviously, I think Cologne had a shot off the post quite late on or off the bar. But I think overall Stuttgart deserved the win. I think nobody would really deny that. Okay, so yeah, also another 1-0 away win in another mid-table clash between Freiburg and Union Berlin. I was a little bit shocked about this result, to be honest. I really fancied Freiburg there, but I was quite glad to see my boys Union get back to winning ways. And I think they definitely deserved it as well, Rory, for me.
Yeah, I think they did, to be fair. From what I've seen from the game, it was a game that Union deserved to win. And from my point of view, I also expected Freiburg to win this, given the form of both teams. Freiburg haven't been as good lately, but Union have obviously been on a really bad run. It's amazing to think that how bad a run of form Union have been on, that the win at the weekend has taken them to 3 points within 6th place, and now they're up to 7th. They've been huge winners from the fact that all these other teams have been really inconsistent. And then I'm sure I said a few weeks ago that we don't really expect them to, go for Europe anymore. But they're 3 points off it somehow. They're 3 points off, a top 6 place, which is amazing for them. And if they can, get Max Kruse fit again, obviously he had some game time again this weekend, so that's important for them. And obviously they're a threat from set pieces. So if they can get themselves, on another little run, then who knows? Yeah. So a good win for them and a much needed one.
Absolutely. And then obviously the other game was the Augsburg v Leverkusen. Yeah, I mean, I tipped a 1-1 draw, so I got to take a bit of credit there. But yeah, I mean, it looked as though Augsburg, we always say that Augsburg, they always get a win when they need one, and they are starting to drop a little bit closer. I mean, it's still a point game, but obviously a 95th minute equaliser is a real blow for them, really, against a woefully off-form Leverkusen side. Obviously, Tap Soda from a Damari Gray assist got the equaliser there in the 95th minute. Do you think that's a big blow for Augsburg, Rory?
I mean, strictly looking at the Bundesliga table after that result, a win obviously puts them, around the sort of 11th place mark, on the same points as what Hoffenheim will go on to once they wrap up their win, which I think they are still doing, as we are recording still. It looks like it's 3-0 actually now. Yeah, so that was a huge kind of turning point, because now they're only on 23 points, which if the likes of Hertha and Cologne and Bielefeld and even Mainz obviously pick up another win, that really pulls them in a lot more. So yeah, I mean, I expect Augsburg to be absolutely fine, and I think they will find this elusive win. But yeah, it would be a devastating drop to 2 points to them. Leverkusen, I mean, you probably just got to take it at the moment. They're still well within a chance, but they're falling further behind the top 4 right now. So they need to very, very quickly find some form and some consistency more than anything else.
Absolutely, and I'll just update you on this one as well. I mean, we don't often have live scores on the Bundesliga show. But, with 87 minutes played, it's 3-0 to Hoffenheim. So I think we can safely say that Hoffenheim have got a win there. We always say that when they get back into European action, they just up their form, don't they? And I mean, we've seen this has been a really good performance from Hoffenheim, who, to be honest, I think they are generally starting to get back to the usual Hoffenheim overall. And they probably since the turn of the year, they've been a much better side than what they were before the turn of the year, for me anyway, that's for sure. Okay, so that pretty much rounds up our week 22 review. So I just want to have a look at the hero and zero of the week before we finish. So
so we'll just quickly finish off with our hero and zero of the week section. For me, hero was quite an easy one. Myself and Mark both agreed on this, that it would be Amin Younes of Eintracht Frankfurt for not only his wonder goal against the champions, but his overall performance was really, really impressive. Some outrageous bit of skills and bits of football. Obviously loved the ambition to lob Neuer from halfway as well. So yeah, a well-deserved hero of the week for Amin Younes. And then our zero of the week is taking a bit of a trend right now, even the season in recent months. It's unfortunately it's another keeper. And Mark, do you want to allude on this one?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So as you can see on the bottom of the screen, it was Nicholas Lom of Leverkusen. Yeah. So obviously he came off the bench last week against Mainz and didn't look overly convincing in the 2-2 draw. Then this week he gets robbed on the ball for Florian Niederlechner to bang in the opener for Augsburg. I mean, it's just a horrible mistake again from a keeper that just, I'll be honest, doesn't look Bundesliga standard from the 2 games we've seen him so far. So yeah, I mean, it's another goalkeeping error. It's been one of those years for goalkeepers, hasn't it? It just seems as though there's not been a lot of very good goalkeeping in the Bundesliga this year, but it's good for us because it means more goals after all, you know? Yeah. Okay, so that pretty much rounds up our week 22 review. So let's just finish with the usual. Let's have a look at the Twitter feed. So at Over the Bar FB, if you want to check anything football related, we've been doing a lot of League One shows recently. I've also been kind of getting involved on there a little bit as well. So check that out. Yeah, also we got regular articles about a number of things, championship related, Premier League related, women's football, just about anything you can possibly want related to football. Then the other thing you can check out is our website, which is otbfootball.net, where you can see like the centerpiece of our work with Over the Bar. You can see just about everything and links to the site as well. So thanks for joining us again. I hope you enjoyed it. It's been a great week for the Bundesliga because everything is back on, isn't it? I mean, the relegation, the title race, this is what we want with 12 games to go. So let's hope that next week brings another fantastic week of Bundesliga action. So all the best, guys.
Cheers all.